on the car ride home, my wife, she asked me what was wrong. And at first I kind of said, it was nothing, but she knew something was wrong. So she persisted. So I decided it would be a good idea to complain to my wife about the way she talked to me.
Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your marriage without your husband's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special. I'm Laura Doyle, and today we're going to reveal the top 5 lessons from 200 Empowered Wife podcast episodes. My guests today are 2 master relationship coaches and 2 husbands, one of them mine. They are also the Empowered Wife podcast team, here to help me talk about the top 5 lessons we've learned from doing 200 Empowered Wife podcasts. That's coming up. If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. This is the 200th episode of the Empowered Wife podcast. So first of all, let's have some confetti. Yay! It's because of you listeners listening to this podcast every week. Many of you listen to it more than once. That's the reason it's been so successful. So thank you for listening and for thinking that marriage is important enough to learn about and work on, because it is. And thank you for the glowing ratings and reviews and for sharing the podcast with your friends and family. I am so grateful. And I want to celebrate with you what we've been through together all these years, working on making our marriages stronger, staying inspired, and changing the world by changing our own families, making them strong. And I also want to thank my fantastic podcast team who are my guests on the show today. I am taking you behind the curtain today to reveal that not only did I not make 200 episodes of the podcast by myself, it takes this whole team to come up with the topics, book the guests, edit the pieces of the podcast together, send out the email newsletter, get it posted on all the platforms, and review it for quality every week. So this podcast team that's here, and who are also my besties and my husband, they're going to share what we've learned about ending world divorce from doing 200 episodes of the podcast, because not only did I get some surprising insights about ending world divorce over the last few years of podcasting, but my guests today have also been immersed in the podcast because they help make it happen. And they also get inspired and have aha moments from being involved with the podcast. And 2 of them are husbands, and 2 of them are master empowered relationship coaches. And I also just want to start this off by congratulating all of you and thanking all of you for these 200 episodes, for making them happen. So congratulations, team. Here, here.
All right.
Thanks. Welcome.
Thank you, Laura.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we do on every group coaching call on our campus is that we share what our takeaways are. So what are you taking away from this call that you want to take with you for the week? What's going to serve you to keep in mind, or what aha moment, what insight did you have? So in that spirit, I'm going to ask each of you for your takeaway from doing 200 podcasts. And Master Coach Kathy Murray, I'm coming to you first.
Well, Laura, it's a privilege to be your partner in producing the Empowered Wife podcast, and thank you for that honor. I think one of the most surprising things that I've learned in producing this will be the 200th episode, is the courage and vulnerability of your guests, and the willingness of them coming on the show to share their experience practicing the 6 intimacy skills and changing their families. It's been a joy to watch them say yes to the invitation, or even surprisingly just receive their application out of nowhere, not even knowing they existed because they were book readers. And we didn't even know that they'd saved their marriage because they've been doing it with the book alone. I think this is one of the most surprising things. You had the idea, you had the vision. We certainly had the desire, and then they came, And I'm so grateful that I've gotten to meet all of the guests and support them coming on the show. And it's been super fun to see how surprising it's been to see their courage and their vulnerability and their willingness to pay forward their experience so other women, the listeners, could benefit from experimenting and trying out the intimacy skills. So that's number one at the top of my list, is the courage and vulnerability of our guests.
It is something. I think when we started this, I don't think we realized that we would have so many guests come on and be willing to share so vulnerably. And you, as the executive producer of the podcast, you listen to every single one of those interviews, as well as the things that I'm sharing around those interviews for each podcast, and you also have been booking all the guests. You book all the guests for the podcast, so invite them to come on. And I think that has been so instrumental. I think you create a sense of safety for them that when they come on, they're going to be handled with special care. And we're going to really respect their privacy, and just because they are being so vulnerable, that we're going to hold that in safe hands. So thank you so much for all that you've done to make that happen. It is really remarkable.
You're so welcome, Laura. Thank you. It is a surprising thing to see, even receiving more stories, more desire for sharing than we even have episodes to share, and it's also a surprising thing. And so we just invite women who want to share to continue to submit their applications, because we want to find a way to put your story on the podcast. It's really been a joy. So thank you for the acknowledgement. It's a joy. It's a privilege. There's been so many surprising things, but that, I think, is the number one. It's the most surprising thing, is that courage. I think your coaches have it, but the reader, the client, the woman who just found you, who's so inspired and hopeful, willing to come on so early in her journey and share about her early success. It's really fun.
Yeah, like you said, we didn't even know she was listening. We didn't really know who was listening. And then, she comes out of the woodwork and says, "I'd like to be a guest on the show." And then we see, one of the things that's been surprising to me is we see a transformation happen just from her being a guest on the podcast, just from coming on and telling her story, that actually takes her to another level. With her marriage and with her intimacy too. So
yes, thank you so much. It's so true. She's like, "Oh, when is it coming out? When can I listen? When can I share it with my friends?" Right? So something exciting happens for her, something that she's proud of, that she's excited to share, to listen to herself and remember, "Oh yeah, I had that transformation. I've done that work."
The way of getting to hold it in her hands, to keep it forever, instead of having it slip away because it was this was just another day. So yeah, it is. It's fantastic. Anything else, Kathy? What else?
Oh my gosh. I think the other thing that's been the most surprising is, after listening to 199 episodes so far now, that listening to each one, that I still hang on your every word. It's true. You all know I'm your biggest fan and follower, and you'd think after this many years of listening that I would have heard it all. But I listen to every word you share at that front part of the interview, and hang on every word, and still learn something and gain something. I think this has been the most surprising thing, is that there's always still more to learn. There's more depth to the content of the 6 intimacy skills or the connection framework. And also that there's still more to learn from the clients. As I listen to their stories and how they've practiced the skills, I'm always taking note, like, "Oh, I want to do that," or "I haven't done that." So I think this is one of the other most surprising things, is that there's always still more to learn and grow from. And there's just no end to being inspired by you, your voice. There's something about your voice, Laura, that is very inspiring and enrolling and hopeful. And I thank you for continuing to give so generously by giving us this free podcast.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Beautiful, beautiful. I just love it. Yeah, I couldn't do it without you. Couldn't do this podcast without you. Just so grateful.
Look at the tears are falling down. It's really authentic. I'm telling you.
I know. We're already crying. I'm not surprised. I know.
And I mean, I call you up. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so good.
You do.
That's so good.
You do. And I'm always like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Yeah, there's so much I could say, but I have a feeling there's others here who have some of the same surprising insight. So maybe someone else can share it if there's more I can share at the end. What is that?
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. All right. Well, I'm coming to Sean. I'm coming to you next. Yes. You guys, this is Sean, and he helps me come up with all the titles for the podcast, and he does the distribution to all the platforms and a bunch of other stuff too. Sean, and he's also my bestie from, I think I've known him longer than anybody else on this call. I used to babysit him when he was little. So Sean, what first of all, thank you for all that you do to make the podcast happen, and congratulations on 200 episodes.
Yeah, congratulations to you.
Thank you. And what is your takeaway from 200 episodes from your perspective, your vantage point?
I know I'm not, your target audience really here, but many of these topics, they really apply to us all. Kathy actually published a podcast recently about resisting bait and choosing what you focus on. And the first in the podcast description said, "I'm right, they're wrong," which is a trap that I seem to fall into often. And it's something you talk about a lot, Laura, on your podcast as well. And so I had an experience recently that I was hoping to share. I was at a park with my wife and my kiddos. We were getting ready to leave the park, and my kids were not moving along to the car as fast as my wife, would have liked them to. I wasn't aware that we were in a hurry, so I was busy reading the sign about a steam engine in the park, and my wife came up to me and complained in an irritated tone that I should be helping wrangle up the kids so that we can leave. I responded in an okay way, but internally, I was not happy about being talked to in that way. So I focused on it. On the car ride home, my wife, she asked me what was wrong. And at first I kind of said, it was nothing. But she knew something was wrong, so she persisted. So I decided it would be a good idea to complain to my wife about the way she talked to me. She got defensive, and she argued with me basically about it, which led to a Cold War that lasted about a half a day. The next morning, I woke up and I realized what was happening. What I was focusing on was increasing. I immediately went to my wife and said I was sorry that I was focusing on, this small tiff instead of all of the good things about our relationship. And she graciously accepted, and we hugged. She accepted my apology, and it felt good, And by focusing on this interaction that lasted maybe 20 seconds, it ended up growing into something that lasted half of a day. My wife said, after I told her this, that she was so inspired by what I said that she wrote it down in her journal as a reminder that what we focus on increases. If I'm honest, these types of negative interactions only take up like maybe 1% of my relationship. But because I sometimes focus on them, and my wife also sometimes focuses on them, they grow into much more than that. So my goal is to focus on the other 99%, which, to be totally honest, is pretty amazing. So how I do that, and how what I've learned from Laura and Kathy as well, is really to focus on self-care, gratitude. And for me, a big one is also vulnerability. And, this is something that I've not just learned from the podcast, but also just being close to Laura and being close to Kathy as well. So I think
Amazing.
Amazing.
Skills have impacted you, Sean. That's the surprising thing of the podcast. Is that he's tried them on for his own life. Wow.
These things, they're so important to me that they've been important to, I think, so many people, and I'm just grateful for what what you guys are putting out, what you're doing to help people in their relationships and marriages.
All the listeners just fell in love with you, Sean, like I did. I'm pretty sure, because that was such a moving story, and I just love your example and your accountability for what you focus on increases, and how you just decided to shift your focus to what's amazing about your relationship, which is 99%. And yeah, I'm amazed. I'm amazed at this. I'm glad we had the opportunity to ask you about this, because I did not know all this. And what a great answer. And so thank you so much. And I love that you pointed out something else that's come out of this podcast. I feel like, in a way, which it spawned another podcast. Kathy Murray has her own successful podcast, and it's geared towards women who are becoming relationship coaches or are relationship coaches. It is well loved. I listened to it. I binged on it the other day, and Sean's listening to it now too. I didn't see that coming, but anyway, so this is a really another wonderful aspect of it. But yeah, beautiful job, Sean. Thank you so much for that personal story. All right. Well, Coach Stephanie, I'm coming to you next. What is your takeaway from 200 episodes? Stephanie writes all the emails and all the social media posts so that we get the word out about the podcast. She is my editor. She's a fantastic editor. I am so lucky and grateful to have her. And so thank you so much, Stephanie, for all that you do to make the podcast happen too.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Laura. All right. One takeaway. I have so many. The biggest one probably is, well, this one is a spoiler alert, that this podcast, it's the same story over and over again, and it never gets old. Never. Like, despite, our differing details, there's that arc of like the battle days when, we didn't know what we didn't know. And then, it's all like things were good and then we had a baby, or things were good and then we got married, or there was some crisis, and just what a story of hope. Like, for me, it's a story of hope and inspiration. Picturing like a movie, if we made a movie ad, it's like redemption and unity of the couple and of the family, and even at the same time that the stories are the same in that way, with that arc, they're different. Like, every woman's pathway there is different. So I'm always in awe of women who are able to get their transformation with the books and podcasts alone, because that was not me. I couldn't do it alone. And then others, I think probably the majority of us who couldn't, who come to the Ridiculously Happy Wife group coaching. And sometimes, I see even after a month, they'll get their transformation, many of them, and everyone's path is different. And others, like me, I dove straight into relationship coach training, even though at that time I had no business, even thinking about being a coach, but that's where I got my transformation. So I think that, along with the power of, I think of it as the power of blessed repetition. I think as an editor, I have kind of like, I don't want to be redundant or repetitive, But here, I can't hear it enough. Even as a coach, I need to hear this story. So thank you to all the courageous women out there sharing your story, for your vulnerability, and for keeping me inspired, and so many.
Wow, beautiful, Stephanie. So you mean to tell me that your marriage wasn't perfect when you started coach training? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, ma'am.
And it worked out okay. You're still, I mean, you're a powerhouse coach now on the campus. So how did you know to become a coach if your marriage was still struggling?
Oh, I came and met you to convince you that there was no hope for my situation. Because if only you met my man, you would know our case was different. And you showed me, you showed me otherwise.
Mm. Mm. Beautiful. I love this expression you used, blessed repetition. And it's so helpful to hear that, because sometimes I worry that I already said that. I said that a couple of weeks ago, and now I'm saying it again. And it's just it's a blessing to hear that it's blessed repetition and not just repetitive or redundant.
Yes. Yeah, it's beautiful. I have a similar worry when I'm writing the copy, that like these stories sound unbelievable, maybe too good to be true, especially when, if you're trying to capture someone's transformation in one sentence, the before and after, where the after is, oh, their marriage is better than ever, or it's 100 times better. Like, I don't know. Does that sound believable? And yet, but they are true. They're true, and I hear the authenticity, and each woman's voice, and I can hear her feeling. I can hear it in the incredibly vulnerable details, like on a recent one where she shared, I slapped my husband, and I know it's real because I've experienced it myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There is something about the authenticity of hearing it in their own voice that is really magical, and yeah, and relatable. I feel the same way. I relate to our guests so much, and I hear you do too.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Love that. That's a great contribution. So grateful for you.
Likewise, you're welcome.
All right. That brings us to John Doyle, my husband,
Hi.
the amazing, the legend, the man. Here he is,
Oh, wow.
the editor of the podcast, and the man who said, you know what, you've got to put this up on YouTube. And I was like, okay. And then he just did it. And now thousands of women consume the podcast on YouTube. Thanks to you just deciding that had to be so. So thank you so much for editing the podcast every week, sometimes at the very last minute for me, because I have procrastinated. And you make me look great every single week.
Thanks, Laura. I feel a lot of gratitude working with this team. Everybody I feel a lot of support and a lot of I'm seen, and I feel really I know when I work with you guys, it's just I feel very secure in working with you. It's a very great feeling. I'm very grateful for that. And of course, Laura, our journey has started well before we even wrote the book and started all your podcasts and everything. But I really enjoyed doing the podcasts a lot. It's and to Stephanie's point, the idea that the stories, it's like some of the marriages just seem so dark at certain points and so sad, and they really there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and I really. I don't feel like I'm the only one that this happened to, because Laura and I, as a marriage, we went through a lot of things, and we had to get ourselves together, and things happen, and so I see that in a lot of marriages, and it gives me hope, and it gives me like a purpose also, in trying to help people, help marriages happen, like one of the episodes that really struck me was. In 188, there was a military couple. They're both military. They both separated, and things weren't looking good at all. And the wife found Laura's book and skills, and she's I guess she's on a coach training, and then the things are going much better. And when you're not even near each other, how do you work on your relationship? But she did that, and it's almost like they did the impossible. A lot of the wives, they were very well, they stuck to it, and they're very determined, and it really made a difference in their marriage. So and also I just really, I enjoy the actual work too. I enjoy getting, because I'm. It's nice to work with people. I don't feel isolated or anything. I feel like, hey, let's work together, and that's pretty much, I enjoy doing the work.
Mm-hmm. I love it, John. Well, it's cool to hear. I always say this podcast is really not for men. It's only for women, and I kind of joke about it. It's like it's hard for men to even hear it, I think. Mm-hmm. But I know you listen to every word of the podcast, and to make sure that they all sound right, all those words. And yeah, it's I'm so grateful.
Yeah, it's nice.
So sweet, Laura, to see you. So vulnerable. Oh my goodness. Me too. I'm so grateful to you, John.
Thank you, Kathy.
Oh my God.
I'm grateful for you, just for showing us the way on a lot of things, for sure.
Oh my goodness. You're so welcome, John. Thank you for being on the team. Speaking of men, I think this is another surprising thing, Laura, if I may, unless you want to respond to John. I can't help it. But this has been another surprising thing, is the men, the husbands who've come on the show to share about their experience. Mm-hmm. And I'm so touched by the husbands who would want to come on and talk about their perspective and their experience of watching their wife practice this work. And, we have two husbands here, Yeah. And so I just really got present to how surprising it was that those husbands wanted to come on and share, and the courage of those wives to invite their husbands to come on and share.
Talk about vulnerability.
Right.
Inviting him on. You don't know what he's going to say, and you have no control over it. And who knows, right? You have to let go of your image when you invite your husband to be on the podcast.
Yes.
And a lot of times I hear the stories of the wife who says, "Oh, do you think I should take this course to make myself more of a respectful wife?" And the husband's like, "Yes, do it." It is real, it really works well for the husband. It's a really good thing.
Yes, it works out.
And that dovetails just so beautifully into, this is my takeaway. One of the big takeaways from 200 episodes. Some of them said, you know what? I was suspicious. I did not know what my wife was talking about. Like, why is she saying all these things that are so different than what she used to say all of a sudden? And it just gave me new insights about what it's like to be on the receiving end of a wife who's practicing the intimacy skills. And then I also just felt I felt so much tenderness from those husbands. I felt like they were grateful for what we're doing, for what all of us are doing. And I remember Matthew saying, "I'm more in love with my wife than I've ever been." And I remember Len saying he goes, "Laura, I would do anything for you." And I just felt such a sense that they had our backs. They had my back. And I just was, I was so moved by that. So that was my big takeaway after 200 episodes, one of the big ones, and how generous they were to come on and talk to me on a show that's by women, for women for the most part, except you guys are finding out now that we've got 2 men on the podcast team here and very deeply involved in making it all happen.
And also very much inspired by much of Laura. And you, Kat.
Thank you, Sean.
For sure.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you. Well, it does seem to really be a benefit to have that masculine energy helping the podcast go out into the world.
One of my takeaways, or things that's been surprising for me, is that we talk about John right in front of him and he's cool with it. Because I think ever since I first showed up on campus in those early days, I wondered, how does he feel about hearing things like Laura saying, oh, I used to think my husband was such and such. And I really admire your commitment, John, to this mission to end world
Thanks.
divorce. Yeah.
Thanks, Stephanie. I appreciate that. I
You're
don't know. I can handle it.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's for a good purpose. So, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness for the rest of us. Yeah. The more I hear about John, the more I love him. I'm your biggest fan. Well,
Oh, thanks.
one of them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just recently I heard how you left, I think, your brothers early to come make Laura tea in the morning before volleyball and just melt those things. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to keep Laura entertained. So that's part of my job. So,
You're a great
Yeah,
husband,
I've
John.
known both Laura and John for a long time, and John, you are an inspiration as well. I mean,
thanks, Sean.
seeing you with your brother and the way that you care for him, I mean, it really was an inspiration to me, And yeah, you're an awesome person, man.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Oh.
Thank you.
Well, now I want to pile on, John.
Oh, Kathy, wow.
Oh, one of the things that I had written down that I didn't get to say, what I want to say now, is just like how one of the most surprising things is that you and Laura self-published the original book. And I know you were a big part of that. And who knew that that work back then was going to create all of this? 3.3 million downloads of this podcast, 4 more books, and tens of thousands of women and families' lives changed. So I thank you for supporting Laura in this mission and this work and all that you've contributed from the very, very, very beginning.
Thank you very much, Kathy.
You're so
really
welcome.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
When we started, there was no such thing as podcasts. Really, we were just
the internet was barely here too.
Yeah, it was
right?
barely here. Yeah, we thought, let's self-publish. Let's give it a shot. And
yes,
that's what we did.
Wow. Thank you so much. The whole movement got started. You're so welcome. Thank you.
Go ahead. Laura, I want to say I also really delight in hearing the goings on at the Doyle household, like your Quaker Oats man with his googly eyes and races to the mailbox. Anyway, just thank you for being so open, both of you, to share powerful skills.
That's fun. Thanks.
And John, one more thing. Now that the fan club is in full effect, just hearing your gratitude was really beautiful. And,
that's great.
Yeah,
thank you.
Share that.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to be a part of this and part of Laura's life, and this is just a great news part of it. It's great.
Yeah. For me, it feels just so dreamy and joyful to get to work with a team like you all. Of course, with such skilled women, and then also you guys too. I don't know, something's contagious around here. So yeah, it's such a pleasure working with you, John and Sean.
Yeah, Sean does the real magic around here too. I don't know how he does what he does, but he's doing it really well. Excellent.
True. Yes.
Sure.
I think that really the magic of it all comes from all of you. The inspiration from Laura, the editing from Stephanie, the management and direction of Kathy, like pushing.
For sure.
And then just everything that you're doing as well, John, like getting us on YouTube, like editing the videos, and just being like a part of all of this, and just helping Laura in general in every other way you do. It's all just great magic.
Thanks so much, Sean. Appreciate it. I'm loving it. I'm really loving doing it. So it's great.
So
like opening all those.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
I said, what a receiver.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So funny. I was just going to say, well, ultimately Laura is the ultimate receiver in all of this. And so I want to acknowledge you, Laura, for inviting us to be on your team, to support you in this vision that you had to get the word out to even more women. And I don't even know how many countries your podcast reaches, but it's far reaching. And the difference that you're making is so big. So thank you for asking us to be on your team and letting us stand for you and beside you on your vision to help even more women. So generous.
So you guys do all the work
Thanks,
and then
Laura.
you thank me. I love it. What a system. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody has a part and it all comes together, and everybody's part is so important. So I
That's
thank
true.
you. Yeah.
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 So come on the podcast, everybody. This is the place to be. Okay.
Yeah.
Come on the podcast. We'd love to have you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a great snuggy love fest spot to be
Yeah.
on for sure.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. And let's do 200 more episodes, right?
That's right. We got to go for the next 200.
That's
and then
right.
Here's the next 200 episodes.
I guess we'll have a 300th reunion maybe too,
Yeah.
and then a 400.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. This is our bicentennial or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's another surprising thing. Sean brought it up, right? That my podcast came out of this podcast as a result of our growth as far as training coaches and really realizing like there's a whole other possibility of inspiring coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Who knew that was going to happen out of that first self-published book, that almost 200 coaches would be trained and helping Laura and her mission to end world divorce and speaking to women that we otherwise wouldn't meet or get to help because they're helping them in other languages or other currencies. And I feel so honored to get to speak to our coaches and support women who want to join us as coaches. So thanks for the shout out, Sean, and sharing your very vulnerable, intimate family life story that came from being inspired by that one episode.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know you were listening.
He listens to everything.
Okay, now I know.
Yeah, it's interesting the way that things get, shown to you sometimes. I wasn't really expecting that day to have that inspiration. I was not having a great day, and then that podcast came across my email, and the description, I'm right, they're wrong, is exactly what I was thinking at the time. And yeah, and it's a trap I fall into often, and it just really helped me focus on what I wanted and not what I don't want. And really inspired me 3 or 4 days later, I think it was, like, and what's the chances that it came across and at that point to where I was on vacation, and it could have like ruined my vacation, if I were focusing on, what I don't want instead of focusing on the 99% that it's amazing. Thank you for that, Kathy.
You are so welcome, Sean. I'm so tickled to know that it's making a difference in lives I didn't even know. So that is so touching. Oh my gosh, Laura Doyle, this is all you, honey.
This is such a great idea. I'm so happy I invited the 4 of you on. This was great. Exceeded my expectations.
Happy to hear.
Thank you for having me, Laura.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Guys.
Really fun. Made my day.
Awesome.
It's nice to connect even now with everybody because, I don't get a lot of chance to talk to you guys all the time. So this is really neat chance to do that.
Oh,
Yes.
it's nice to have you on Zoom with us, John. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. It's a team. Definitely a village, right? I mean, Fridays are like, okay, I got to get it to Sean by noon. And Stephanie's going to get the copy done before that. And Laura's going to get the recording to John before that. And then John knows to get it done. And sometimes I have to throw a wrench in it. I think that's been another surprising thing is that you're so responsive, John. When I say, oh my gosh, we need an edit. I would love to have an edit in this one. Or maybe an episode isn't quite a fit for the title or the circumstance, and you're so accommodating, and I so appreciate, you trusting that leadership around putting the podcast out to the public.
Yeah. I want to make sure it's perfect when you get it. So and then I'll make any changes. I don't care. It's fine.
Oh, so good.
Any time of day or night.
It's certainly been my experience. And Stephanie, you're the same way with the copy. It's like, I just don't know how you do it, but you definitely are able to succinctly communicate what's needed in the social media copy and the email copy and the newsletter and for the website. And I'm so grateful to you for your partnership in producing the podcast and getting it out there.
Kathy.
You're welcome.
Pleasure.
All right.
Sure.
I think we're all in love.
I think so. It's soup. It's love soup.
Love soup.
So great, you guys. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to make a podcast with me. It's fun.
And in case anybody asks, Laura and I are only about 10 feet away from each other. She's just in the other room. It's not like
my office, that's his office.
I'm not in Seattle or something like that.
Oh, good.
It looks like a completely different world.
It does.
My office.
It does.
The man cave.
You got the
And
masculine and the feminine. Actually.
That's right. The blue and the pink. Yeah.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Stephanie. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
And
Thanks.
Laura.
Thank you, Kathy.
Uh-huh.
Thanks,
Hang out with
Stephanie and
you,
Sean.
you guys.
So thank you so much. This has been fantastic. Congratulations and thank you so much. I couldn't do any of this without you. And for you listeners out there, same thing goes for you. If I wasn't, I'm so grateful to get to be in your ears every week for the podcast. So, all right, everybody, until we talk again, take good care of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Laura.
Bye.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. On next week's podcast, we're going to talk about what to do if you're living in a loveless marriage. And in the meantime, I hope you are having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that I didn't imagine I'd still be singing the alphabet song to alphabetize things now that I'm an adult, but here we are.